Biden and Kamala Harris have vowed to take away your Second Amendment rights through gun bans, gun confiscation, and government regulations. Now, Joe Biden is no longer hiding his real intentions, and we need you to take action now.
Whether it's a 9mm pistol or whether it's a rifle, is ridiculous. I'm continuing to push to eliminate the sale of those things. But
the Biden administration is coming after your right to own any gun, and we need you to text PROTECT2A to 888-762-0221. Joe Biden has already issued executive orders. He is now demanding Congress push through radical gun legislation. You can fight back to stop Joe Biden's gun grab, but you must text PROTECT2A to 888-762-0221. Take action to protect your right to keep and bear arms. We urgently need millions of Americans to text PROTECT2A to 888-762-0221. Text PROTECT2A to 888-762-0221.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Daily Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today is the attitude behind Bearing Arms. Tom Knighton is gracious enough to give us some time today. And Tom, thanks for coming over today, man.
Hey, appreciate it. I've never been referred to as gracious before, so that's a nice change.
There you go.
Usually the words used to describe me are 4 letters.
Well, I did make it into the 6th grade, and so I did learn a few more words that, I even have some 8 and 9 letter words in my vocabulary.
Well, I'm not saying that the people who use those 4-letter words are wrong.
All right.
I'm just saying that's what they normally use.
All right. Well, let's get started today because we got a little bit of ground to cover. Virginia. Let's go back to November. Virginia went red in a big way in the elections of this past November, and as soon as the legislature started this month, they said we want to roll back everything the Democrats did, and they made a big push to do that. And all of a sudden, when those bills got to the Senate, oopsie, they kind of lost some ground.
Yeah, and that bothers me a lot, because that was a key issue. That while it was one of those issues that didn't come up a lot in campaigns, in a lot of ways, but it was a recurring, thing that was being talked about outside the campaign. Supporters were arguing this on either side, and people voted in part because Democrats had gone off the deep end with gun control, and they were trying to just reset it to where it had been a couple of years ago. This wasn't, some radical move. It was just, let's get back to where we were. It should have been a no-brainer. And the fact that they aren't making it happen bothers me.
Yeah, absolutely. The next one, and I want to remind everybody, I think everything is connected correctly. If you want to comment on any of the stories we talk about, we do kind of get to them in a hurry, but if you want to throw your comment in, we'll get it on the air, we'll discuss it. If the story's gone by, we'll revisit it, we'll get your comment and we'll talk about it. But just comment on either the YouTube or the Facebook, and we'll get it up and talk about your comment. But anyway, next story I wanted to talk about real quick was a story out of the Denver Post, and looks like the Democrats there, they want to take the minimum age to buy an assault weapon, an AR. They want to take the minimum age to buy an AR from 18 to 21. At 18, I can sign up, go into the Army, and fire an M4. I can sign up, go into the Army, and drive a damn N1A Abrams tank. If an 18-year-old is mature enough to do those things, At
18, you can sign on to be a door gunner running a minigun.
Uh-huh.
Something that I'm probably never going to get a chance to play with, and you get paid. You could get paid to use it. You know, it's funny because when you say the Second Amendment is a second-class right, these people who support this will go, "Oh, no, 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 it's not." Well, how? How can you say that when you support telling 18-year-olds, you're an adult, as an adult, you have access to all your rights except this one?
Mm-hmm. Right.
We have decided 18 is a legal adult. We can agree generally that children, wherever you set that threshold, children require supervision. You know, it's not that they don't have rights, it's they aren't quite there to exercise. But if you're going to tell me that a 18-year-old is not mature enough to own an AR-15, then what you're telling me is they're not mature enough to vote.
Bingo. That's exactly where I was going to go next.
If they're that immature, then how can we trust that they will fully think through the consequences of who they vote for?
You're exactly right. You know what? If you're going to use that level of, they have to actually think through who they're going to vote for. I know 60-year-olds who should not be voting.
Oh yeah. You know, I can think of a lot of people who shouldn't be voting. You know, unfortunately, they vote.
Yes.
But you know, if we're going to set okay, fine. Everyone below this line is ineligible to vote. That's fine. If you want to raise that line to 21, and I've seen people make the arguments that you know, about the brain's not fully developed, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, but everything cuts off.
Right.
They can't sign contracts. They can't enlist without parental permission. They can't do anything that we associate with adulthood until they hit 21.
Right. And I'm myself, and I'm speaking for Paul Lathrop right here, I would be willing to say that, you know what, at 8, you either make everything 18, including drinking age, including everything, or you make everything 21. I mean,
speaking for Tom Knighton, it's the exact same thing.
It
was frustrating being an 18-year-old service member.
I believe it.
Not being able to drink, but I could be sent literally at any minute to go off to war.
Mm-hmm.
You're old enough to die for your country, just not old enough to get tanked the night before.
There you go. You know, I'm one of these few. When I was growing up, they had something called 3-2 beer in South Dakota, and 3-2 beer could be, it is less than 3.2% alcohol by volume, and that could be served from 18 to 21 years old in South Dakota. So they had 3-2 bars you could get in at 18, or you had adult bars where they served all kinds of liquor, but you had to be 21 to get in there. Well, when I turned 16, they raised the age to 19. All right, so I had to wait another year. When I turned 19, they got rid of the 3-2 bars and 3-2 beer altogether, and they turned everything to 21. I was legally able to drink for 6 months when I turned 19 years old. And then
my uncle was in a similar boat to that. In fact, I remember him standing in the house at like 18, because he was around that same basic thing, and he just looked at my dad, who was a cop, and not going to stop drinking.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, no, I'm not going to stop just because they changed. You know, I have to now wait 6 more months because, you know, of this stuff. And my dad's like, well, yeah, of course you're not.
Right.
You know, it's stupid. There wasn't even a grandfather thing with that stuff, and it was screwed up.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to be clear, for anybody that doesn't have any experience with 3-2 beer, 3-2 beer is dyed water. I mean, you have to drink so much of that to get a buzz. You're going to be spending most of the evening in the bathroom. So, Now, according to these, these days when they've got the unisex bathrooms and everything, that might actually be a thing. So, but anyway,
I've caught a bigger buzz off of Mountain Dew than 3.2 beer.
Yeah, I believe it. And I was actually I went to go. This is before my stroke. Since my stroke, I figure the stroke did enough damage to my brain that I don't need to help it along anymore with alcohol. So I totally quit drinking. But before I was actually looking at this Michelob Ultra, the supposedly low carb beer. That is 3.2 beer, and it absolutely tastes like it. So
yeah.
All right.
Then you're like, what's the point?
Yeah, that is exact. At least give me the damn
it's
taste.
Slightly more alcoholic than your beer.
Yeah,
it's only a hair more alcoholic than O'Doul's,
and it doesn't taste as good. Seriously, O'Doul's, Anheuser-Busch makes O'Doul's, and that stuff. If you like beer, that stuff tastes pretty good.
It tastes like beer.
Yeah. And it's got I think it's 0.01% alcohol. So but anyway, let me get Charlie Chambers says power doesn't go to the majority; it goes to the majority that shows up to vote and participate. Show up, amen, Charlie.
Yep, Charlie's right.
And we're coming up on if tomorrow is going to, where did January go? Tomorrow is going to be February 1st. So we've got 9 months until the elections. If you don't like listening to politics or election talk, boy, you're going to be in for a rough time if you tune into us regularly, because there's going to be a lot of it coming up. We need to absolutely dominate the elections. We need to win above the cheat this November and November 2024.
Yeah, in fairness, I think anyone who pays attention to us probably doesn't have an issue listening to talk about politics.
Probably not.
Probably not. But if you are one of those, we'll see you in November.
Well, I'm here at this point in the broadcast. It comes to the point where I get to throw Tom a softball. Tom, I'm looking at Bearing Arms, and I see gun recoveries doesn't necessarily mean what CNN thinks. You want to give us the thumbnail sketch of that one, man?
Okay, the very the short version. CNN is full of idiots.
Okay,
that's the short.
The somewhat longer short version.
Okay, CNN did a story today yesterday talking about gun recoveries, and they contacted all these law enforcement agencies, and only 8 replied back, but they had so many more gun recoveries this year than they had, or in 2021 than they had back in 2019, and blah blah blah. The problem is that gun recoveries is a meaningless term. It includes everything from I found this gun, here, take it, to people going to a buyback.
Okay.
And going, I have these guns, I want to get rid of them. To, hey, we found a gun on this guy, we confiscated it. It's all of these things. And so there's no differentiation.
Now, I'm wondering if any of these recoveries they happened to come upon this terrible boating accident that I hear about all the time. Oh, and he froze up.
Okay.
Nope, they were back. I'm wondering if these recoveries are they took the boat out and happened to find these terrible boating accidents that we all keep hearing about.
I don't think they've gone that. I don't think they've gone there yet.
Okay.
That's coming. But it's like there's also the fact that some of these recoveries that they find on somebody are people who are otherwise law-abiding but live in a place like New York City or Los Angeles where they permit.
Mm-hmm.
And they're operating on the better to be tried by 12 than carried by 6.
Okay.
Or how, they're like, okay, I can't not Larry, but prison's better than being murdered. So
Okay.
they opt to carry a lead, and we'll deal with repercussions if it comes up. One of the cities that they actually explicitly say, hey, we're using some data from, or actually they don't explicitly say it, but the only city they mention is New York City. How easy is it to get a permit in New York City?
Virtually impossible.
I have a better chance of getting Kate Beckinsale's phone number. Okay? It's not going to happen. 80% of the people, it's just not going to, you're not getting a permit. And so if someone's found with a gun who's otherwise law-abiding...
Let me clarify this. You have a better chance of getting Kate Beckinsale's phone number and your wife letting you live through the experience.
Oh, no, see, that's pushing it. There's no chance of that. I got a better chance of being elected mayor of New York City than that. But, that's what recoveries, it includes so many things that the number itself is meaningless. It means nothing. And yet, CNN presents it without any kind of context, without really any caveats that, hey, this is just an interesting statistic, but it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Nothing like that. Because they won't look at that and be afraid. It
could be that that Grandpa passed, and Grandpa had a bunch of guns, and the Grandpa's, like Mom and Dad and Aunt and Uncle are a little afraid of guns, and so they don't want to mess with it. They just say, call the sheriff and say, hey, you want to come take care of these for us, please? Because we don't feel comfortable around them.
Or there's a history of mental health and they don't trust themselves around firearms.
Yeah,
I can respect that. Absolutely respect somebody doing that. But it's hardly the same thing as gangbangers running down the street with an arsenal in the trunk. It's not. It's foolish to pretend it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And another example of the media is going to do, and specifically the legacy media, and again, I call them the legacy media because they're just like a legacy port on your computer. It's still there. Nobody uses it for anything, but it's still there. Nobody knows why, but it's there. The legacy media will do everything they can to impress that guns are the problem, and including using statistics that don't mean anything but sound ominous. So, and here's another good example. My boss, Alan Gottlieb, put out a press release just a few hours ago, and I actually want to read this, and then Tom and I are going to. I want to increase the font here because I really can't see this all that well. So let me boost this to 150%. Oops, I didn't. I want to go. Come on, here we go. And now I can see. My eyes are getting old. All right. Monday's shots fired report from the King County, Washington prosecutor's office on the number of gun-related homicides and injuries from last year is more proof that gun control laws and anti-rights initiatives adopted over the past few years in Washington state have been abject failures, the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms said today in reaction. Proponents of these laws, especially the gun control initiatives passed in recent years, sold the public a bill of goods, and now everybody knows it, said CCR-KBA Chairman Alan Gottlieb. The voters were told in 2014 that Initiative 594 would reduce gun-related violence, and today's data proves they were misled. 4 years later, Seattle-based gun prohibition lobby promised Initiative I-639 would prevent gun-related homicides, and they lied again. In Olympia, anti-gun politicians are pushing more gun restrictions right now with the same promises. The billionaire-backed gun lobby and their allies in Olympia claim that so-called gun violence is an epidemic, he said. Frankly, the intellectual dishonesty of the gun control crowd is the real public health crisis. King County authorities reported Monday that 88 people were murdered and another 342 were wounded in shootings last year. Law enforcement agencies in the county reported a startling 1,405 shooting incidents, surpassing the 1,025 posted in 2020. Gottlieb opposed both initiatives. He has been an outspoken critic of other gun laws pushed through the legislature. CCR KBA's national headquarters are in Bellevue, just east of Seattle. A check of the FBI annual Uniform Crime Report shows the number of murders in Washington, and especially Seattle, have gone steadily upwards since the current gun control crusade started 8 years ago. Just about done. Quote, "We warned the public these gun control schemes were wishful thinking at best," Gottlieb said. "The data provides all the evidence necessary to say the anti-gun rights initiatives and legislation have amounted to snake oil, giving the public a false sense of security while their rights are being steadily eroded. Instead of pushing more restrictions like they're doing right now, it's time for gun control zealots to admit they've been wrong all along. Extremist gun control has failed miserably for Evergreen State citizens, and the rising body counts prove it." Asking gun control advocates to admit they're wrong, I don't think they're going to be doing that anytime soon, man. They usually double down.
I do got to take issue with something that Alan said in the press release. I think he's being entirely unfair comparing gun control to snake oil. Snake oil gives a placebo effect, thereby having benefit.
Oh, sure.
So, it's really snake oil to compare it to gun control.
And, snake oil does have some amino acids and, does have minor nutritional value.
Right. So, it's infinitely better than gun control. It accomplishes more.
You're 100% right.
You're sitting there reading it. You're sitting there reading that to me, and I'm sitting here wanting to just listen to gun control doesn't work. Holy cow! Nobody saw that coming. We haven't been saying this since way before the stuff was passed. It's like we got to do this, or there's going to be, it's the only way we can stop bloodshed and violent crime rates increase. You pass a gun rights law. They said the streets will run red with blood. Nothing happens. At worst, nothing happens.
Right.
But otherwise, violent crime goes down, and it's because see, this one happened. This person got shot. Okay, well, and somebody's gonna get shot. I hate to break it to you, person. One anecdote does not make your point.
Well, and we can go absolutely, when somebody proposes gun control, we can take instances like this and say, what are you trying to do? Get people killed? Look at what's happened here. Gun control passed, more people died. What are you trying to do? Kill more people?
Yep. And that's really what it's down to is see, they give this whole thing about it being about trying to save lives, that it's morally the right thing to do and all this stuff. And yet, when we point out the facts, like what's going on in Washington, the fact that in the 1990s we had the worst violent crime in history, and then as more states started liberalizing their gun laws, in this case meaning expanding gun rights, restoring gun rights to where they should have been started, we had that happen. At the same time, violent crime started dropping. They completely ignore that. The only part of that they pay any attention to is the little window in the 90s, from the 90s to early 2000s, where you had an assault weapon in place. And at that point, violent crime was dropping. It was dropping before it. It was dropping after it. Right? It's only been in the last couple of years that homicide rates have skyrocketed again. Oh yeah, that coincides about the time they started pushing gun control hard and heavy again. And we started seeing a bunch of it pass at state levels all over the country. Now, correlation doesn't equal causation necessarily, but if if they're saying if you do X, Y will happen, and it doesn't, it stands to reason that the opposite. If the opposite actually happens, it stands to reason that they're full of it.
Yeah, we're getting down towards the bottom of the hour, Tom. What is there anything in the pipeline that we can look forward to appearing in the near future on Bearing Arms?
Sure, look a little bit. I got a list here. Guys, going to be talking a little bit about smart guns tomorrow at Bearing Arms. We're going to be talking about San Jose's insurance requirement.
Okay.
That'll be a fun one. And I'm going to talk about a bill in New Mexico to require actors who handle firearms to have firearm training.
Really? I wonder, Baldwin, where that one came from.
It's out of the blue. I don't like Baldwin, baby, blue eye.
All right.
Just got to knock some rust off.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
I'm going to hell for that one.
Oh man, my place has been secured there for so long. So
I'm just trying to upgrade to first class at this.
All right. Well, hey man, we are down there. We're at the bottom of the hour, or we're very close to. Tom, I want to say thank you again for joining me, and as always, we have a blast when you come on, man.
Absolutely, man. I love doing it with you, brother.
All right. Folks, we are going to go ahead and shut this one down. If you would, please, if you happen to stumble on the broadcast, come join us, same place you saw us today, for the rest of the week, same time, all week long. And if you're a podcast listener, please subscribe. And either way, whether you're catching us on live video or if you're catching us on podcast, please share us with a friend. We've been growing recently, and we haven't spent a penny on advertising. We haven't spent a penny to YouTube or to Facebook, and we're going to continue that. We want to grow naturally, and the way we grow naturally is you share us with your friends. And if you happen to know Nancy Pelosi, send her the link. We'd love to have her listen. So,
I'd have to blast with that.
just share the show, and thank you for listening, everybody. All right.